Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for tuning in. I'm meteorologist Mike Ottenweller. You've tuned into Your Alaska Weather, brought to you by NOAA and the National Weather Service. Thanks for joining us. Happy New Year to one and all, January 2nd, 2019. Hope everyone had a great holiday. As always, you can reach us at 1-800-472-0391. That will get you in touch with the automated prompts, and you can choose from those any of the 3 offices across the region, Alaska region being Anchorage, Fairbanks, or the Juneau office. Weather.gov/Alaska, that is the regional perspective, and that will also get you to any of the offices. You can also use the point and click feature on the map to dial in as close as you want for your forecast request area. And then if you need to get in touch with anybody here at the TV desk, nws.ar.tvweather@noaa.gov and Mr. Dave Snider, or someone will get back in touch with you as soon as we can. So let's talk about our headlines. Snow continues for you in the interior and for much of the southwest all the way through south central. What has been a rainy pattern for south central is now turning over to snow. What has been a snowy pattern for the interior portion of the state will continue. And we have plenty of advisories and warnings to discuss, so we'll look at the snow in those in just a second. Unsettled weather is going to continue over the Bering Sea, and there's no real change for that with cold air diving down over the warm waters. Very unsettled weather out there, so we'll be looking at that. Improving conditions for southeast Alaska. Those of you down there should see things drying out and some offshore flow developing, so that'll be a nice change. And then cold for the mainland, some colder temperatures after this brief warm-up that we had over the weekend and into the early portion of the week and the late portion of the last year. We'll have a nice warm-up here, or excuse me, a cool down here for much of mainland Alaska. So how about for our weather advisories and warnings? As you can see here along the Alaska range, mostly the eastern portion near Isabel and Mentasta Pass. This is where we have our winter weather advisory, and this is mainly for snow along the Arctic Village all the way through Fort Yukon down towards southwest Alaska, the YK Delta area. This is our warning area, and these are all in effect until either 6 p.m. tonight, Wednesday night, or 6 a.m. Thursday morning. So be sure to check with your local forecast office to see what the details are of each of the warnings in your area. And then out here towards the Seward Peninsula, winter weather advisory for some snow as well. Not a ton of additional snow expected, but still some. And these conditions have obviously been down pretty hard. They're starting to slowly improve as we go into the overnight hours tonight. Up along the northwest coast here, this is also for snow and blowing snow up along the northwest Arctic coast, and that will also be in effect until later this evening in the overnight hours. We'll be watching that as well. Check with your local forecast office again for the details on each of these. So how about for our satellite loop? Well, let's take a look here. Starting out over the Bering Sea, you can see all that unsettled weather, several areas of low pressure. Just let me put it in motion again and bring your attention out here. Look at how many different pockets of air of the low pressure is swirling out here, out over the Bering Sea. That happens when you get a lot of cold air feeding into this warm air mass down to the south, and that really allows those areas of low pressure to build. So lots of unsettled weather out there. Towards southwest, you've actually seen conditions improve a little bit today from what they were overnight last night with some snow and blowing snow along the delta. And as we look up towards the interior portion of the state, that's where the clouds get a little bit brighter, and that is because the cloud tops are a little bit higher, helping to produce better snowfall rates, really stretching up from the Bethel area up towards Arctic Village. And then as you look down towards south central Alaska, that's where we have a weak area of low pressure just sliding off from southwest to northeast. That's helping to wring out the last little bit of snow along the Susitna and Matanuska valleys, also ushering in some colder air from the west. So we'll talk some more about that here in a little bit. And then for you in southeast, well, it's actually been just some showers moving in with some unstable air from that last area of low pressure that we had come through. And those showers have really been confined up towards Sitka and Juneau. Towards Ketchikan, you all have been seeing mostly clear skies, and the next storm system is well off to your southeast, and that's really where it's going to stay. This storm system down here, really a lot of warm air confined down here, but it's really not going to make a lot of progress to the north and east. And so with that, we'd expect most of this area to stay relatively dry and for the most part, just some light rain showers. This is some new satellite imagery that we're using. It is still preliminary and non-operational, but it is very useful imagery nonetheless as we go into the new year. As we look up towards the towards the Panhandle here, we still have some snow showers continuing over the Yakutat region this afternoon, and some snow showers up towards the Copper River Basin, looking towards Glen Allen and along the Alaska Range, stretching out along the Parks Highway here. Some light snow. This is primarily expected to be east of Anchorage, but the possibility of a couple inches of accumulation for the Eagle River Valley, Matanuska Valley, and up towards the Susitna Valley as well. Snow, of course, continuing for much of the interior portion of the state, too, as this area of low pressure is starting to make its way off to the northeast, but brought up plenty of moisture as it came in as a bomb cyclone, losing more than 24 millibars in 24 hours. Out over the Bering, that's where we see things very unsettled with plenty of snow. And as we look into tonight's forecast, you can see that that snow continues. Cold air wrapping around this area of low pressure at 986 millibars. So snow showers will be widespread for you all out in the Aleutians. And then up towards the mainland portion of the state, that's where we have a little bit more steady snow moving in along the Cape Newenham coastline, YK Delta, Nunivak Island, even into Bristol Bay. Possibility of some more snow overnight tonight. Not looking for anything in accumulation to be too heavy, but still the possibility for some snow there. Up towards the Arctic coastline here, we have some snow starting to taper off finally after that system moved through, and that's really going to be on the north side of the Brooks Range where we expect most of that. Down towards south central, this area of low pressure is finally starting to work its way through the Gulf, but still going to have some wraparound snow through the overnight hours. So expect light snow really up from Denali area down through mainly Girdwood and parts of the Prince William Sound, and then on the eastern side of it as that moisture wraps around from the Gulf of Alaska. Out towards southeast Alaska, well, you all have seen, again, pretty nice conditions for the most part. Just some snow showers continuing for higher elevations and rain showers for you in the lower elevations. But really, for the most part, southeastern portion of southeast has actually been quite dry and will continue to be so. As this system continues to make its way slowly to the north, it helps to bring in offshore flow. That offshore flow comes off the Canadian Rockies, dries out as it descends out over the mountains, and then brings you all some fairly nice weather. So expect that on Thursday as well. As we look towards the Copper River Basin, snow showers should be tapering off through the day for you all on Thursday, and we'll start to see this area of high pressure move in. It's not a super strong high, but it will bring drier and colder air pushing through some of the bays and passes here, bringing some gusty outflow winds across Kachemak Bay and those areas, but it should bring a drying trend for much of the mainland. Snow will still continue for the northeastern portion of the Brooks Range, but again, that also should be on its waning legs as we go through the day Thursday. Out over the Bering Sea, now 3 areas of low pressure to keep an eye on. These are all going to be relatively weak in intensity compared to what we have seen, but still the potential for snow showers, some gusty winds, and even mixing with some rain as you get towards the North Pacific. And then finally, on into Friday now, you can see a new area of low pressure at 963 millibars. This system is just starting to take shape on some of the weather models, so stay tuned, especially the mariners out there. Stay tuned exactly what we expect with this, but for right now, it looks like a fairly strong system. Looks like it is going to track up into the Bering and bringing some more warm air with it here with this warm front, some rain to the Aleutians, and certainly some snow around the backside of it and snow out in front of it heading towards the Pribilofs. And that's what we expect for you all on Friday. Towards southwest Alaska, another weak area of low pressure, continuing to keep just some light snow, not a lot in the way of accumulation, but some light snow still in your forecast out there. And then up towards the Arctic coastline and the northwestern portion of the state, that's where we see some more snow stretching out along this trough of lower pressure, bringing some snow to the Seward Peninsula. Pretty dry, calm conditions across much of the mainland, and that's really what we expect with that cold air moving in. Going to see some drying conditions and some cold nights. And then southeast Alaska, possibility of some rain working in from that system down towards Ketchikan, but really for the most part, you should all see mostly dry conditions, possibility of even clear skies for you all on Friday. How about our temperatures? Let's start out with you all down in southeast Alaska on Thursday morning. And you can see with those clear skies, pretty cool compared to what it has been. Generally in the low 30s up towards the Copper River Basin. That's where temperatures are starting to drop towards the single digits. And then once you're up in the interior, down all the way to -8 at Fairbanks, and temperatures well below 0 towards the Yukon Valley and the Tanana Valleys. Up along the Arctic coastline, that's where actually some warmer air has finally been able to move in, some cloud cover, and that keeps temperatures right around 0. And down towards southwest Alaska, temperatures in the single digits, just below 0 as we go into Thursday morning. So you see that cold air starting to spread out on Thursday now in the afternoon. It actually drops a little bit up towards the northwestern portion of the state, starting to push that up against the Alaska Range. Temperatures only in the teens for south central. For southeast Alaska, you can expect temperatures in the mid-30s. On into Friday morning, going to be in the upper 20s for southeast, and that's where that cold air really starts to move in over the state. Minus 24 there at Fairbanks, down to about 1 expected for south central Alaska. Southwest, you'll hang in there in the teens. And then on into Friday afternoon, temperatures really starting to bottom out with this cold air mass moving in. Southeast, you're hanging in there with some sunshine in the mid-30s.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Okay, let's head on up into your flying weather now, and looking out towards the northern portion of the state, up along the Brooks Range there. That's where our biggest swath of IFR conditions are going to be confined for Thursday morning. Instrument flight rules really all the way from the Alaska-Canadian border out towards Point Hope and Point Lay out there, and that is really just due to all that moisture that was ferried up by that previous system is now trapped kind of north of the Brooks Range there. Otherwise, that previous system has left MVFR conditions across eastern portions of the state down to the Copper River Basin. Some light snow probably tapering off there on Thursday morning, even some pockets of IFR conditions there. Out towards southwest coastlines, that's where we have another swath of MVFR conditions. Weak area of lower pressure just pushing into that coastline there, helping to bring some of that marine stratus and probably some light snow to areas along the coast. And then out over the Bering Sea, that's where we just have those weak areas of low pressure also spinning around, several of them producing areas of IFR conditions as well. Off towards southeast Alaska, well, IFR conditions continue to hold on along the Chilkoot and White passes, but MVFR conditions only for the northern tier of southeast Alaska. And then as we get into the later half of the day, things should be improving across the area with just a swath of MVFR conditions located out over the Gulf. So fairly nice afternoon on Thursday afternoon for aviation interest over southeast, and that continues over towards southern Alaska, really from southwest all the way through south central. You can see there just a few pockets of MVFR along the Alaska Range and along the Alaska-Canadian border as that system in the moisture exits to the east of the state. Up along the Arctic coastline, we still have IFR conditions hanging on up there. Cold air and moisture equals low ceilings and oftentimes low visibility. And then along the Bering Sea and the Aleutians, we have MVFR fairly widespread with some pockets of IFR. On into Friday morning now, that MVFR will continue to hang on. Plenty of instability out there, continuing to produce lower ceilings and visibility with snow showers. Some of those will impact along the southern portion of the Seward Peninsula and out towards the west coast. Some of that MVFR conditions sliding up into Bristol Bay. And then up towards the northern portion of the states, things are improving from Thursday into Friday as we go from MVFR or IFR to MVFR with just a pocket there left of IFR conditions northeast of the Brooks Range. And then down towards southeast Alaska, a nice day for flying for you all on on Friday morning and Friday afternoon. You can see there VFR conditions are expected. As we get back towards the mainland, you can see here MVFR conditions are going to hold on along the Alaska-Canadian border, but it's continuing to work from west to east. West to east flow also bringing some of that MVFR conditions up into southwest and northwest Alaska through the Seward Peninsula there. And then out towards the Bering Sea, that's where we have our next system developing, bringing a swath of IFR conditions along with it. So how does that look for our passes? Well, Anaktuvik is going to go from IFR to MVFR. Adigan will be IFR through the day with that moisture hanging in up there. Lake Clark and Merrill should be VFR through the day. Similar story for Rainy. High pressure bringing VFR conditions to Windy, and Isabel should be improving through the day. Mentasta also improving through the day, and Tanita MVFR going to visual flight rules. And finally, Portage MVFR going to VFR as well. And then towards southeast Alaska, instrument flight rules to start the day for Chilkoot and White, but we should see things improve to visual flight rules by the end of the day. So how about our freezing levels? Well, really the only area to talk about is down here. That's about the only area that's getting above the surface with this cold air mass sliding into place. We have that surface line hugging the coastline and then up to about 6,000 feet for southeast. So for icing, that means that there's going to be one small pocket above 3,000 down towards the Dixon entrance region, and then a couple small pockets up here north of the Brooks Range above 1,000, and then over the Copper River Basin at about 2,000 feet, some isolated moderate icing, and then an area fairly widespread across the Bering Strait area, about 2,000 feet, and then above 3,000 feet as some of that moisture works its way towards Bristol Bay. So for our jet stream, it's going to remain mostly south of the state, just a few small fingers trying to work in here, supporting these areas of low pressure. But for the most part, it has made its way down south with that cold air mass pushing it down south. So the active weather is going to remain southeast of southeast Alaska and down towards the lower 48. How does that look on our 9,000 foot winds? Well, you can see here over towards the Bering Strait, that's where we generally have southerly flow coming up in support of these areas of low pressure. pushing through the Bering Strait and becoming westerly across much of the mainland at about 30 knots. It's going to be offshore flow down towards the southern portion of the state at about 10 to 25 knots. And then over towards southeast Alaska, again, offshore flow 10 to 30 knots there at 9,000, about 10 knots at the 30,000 foot level. Towards the Bering, you can see generally westerly flow and westerly flow over the northern portion of the state. A little bit more confused there near the Bristol Bay area. So for turbulence, primarily below 4,000 feet over the western portion of the state, and then below 6,000 feet as you work down towards the Dixon Entrance with that new area of low pressure. We'll be back with your marine forecast.
It's kind of hard to explain how important weather is to our job. I mean, it really affects everything we do.
In 2018, NOAA launches the GOES-S satellite, which takes its place in orbit as GOES-17. Working together with GOES-16, the two new geostationary weather satellites will provide constant watch over the United States and the Western Hemisphere, from the west coast of Africa all the way to New Zealand, helping monitor severe storms, wildfires, and daily weather patterns. Since its launch, NOAA's GOES-16 satellite has already demonstrated its critical capability for keeping our nation weather ready. Throughout the active 2017 hurricane season, GOES-16 delivered imagery with detail and clarity never achieved before, with 4 times greater resolution than previous NOAA satellites, and delivered this imagery faster than ever before, helping forecasters predict the path of a storm and where and when it will intensify. These accurate and timely forecasts allowed for emergency managers to prepare for evacuations, map flood areas, and save lives.
So the weather matters. The weather matters before the weather happens, and the weather matters after the event happens, because what we're able to do to prepare, allocate resources, provide information to the public through the media beforehand, and what we're able to do afterwards, how and when the waters are going to recede, so we know we can get vehicles with life-saving food and shelter equipment down a particular highway. All of that depends on the forecast.
In the GOES West position, GOES-17 will be able to provide critical data for the westernmost United States, Alaska, and Hawaii.
We're talking about getting data updates in just seconds, so we can quickly spot wildfires and closely monitor the wind direction and their intensity. The crispness of the data coming in at a faster rate will also help with fog forecasts. We can see the moment the strata starts to develop or when it starts to move out.
Like GOES-16, GOES-17 carries a suite of advanced instruments, including tools for sophisticated earth sensing, lightning detecting, solar imaging, and space weather monitoring. As an equal partner in the sky, GOES-17 will expand coverage of the advanced baseline imager technology across the Pacific Ocean, allowing meteorologists and local officials to see severe weather systems developing in real time.
So instead of seeing something, say, this large, that as you zoom in actually gets kind of blurry, you're actually going to see something that is much more detailed.
In its GOES West position, GOES-17 will be able to monitor conditions in the western U.S. like wildfires, coastal fog, and atmospheric rivers when storms from the Pacific dump heavy rain and snow over the western U.S. GOES-17 will have a major impact on fighting wildfires in California. Up-to-the-minute information and crisp detail allows forecasters to spot fires faster than ever before, even before the first 911 calls come in, and to better track and predict the path of large, dynamic, and dangerous fires.
It's amazing to see what we can get and at the level of detail and the speed that we can get the information down into the ground that makes our decision-making way more accurate.
With a view of the Pacific Ocean, GOES-17 will also provide a critical eye over shipping lanes vital to the U.S. economy, protecting cargo and passenger vessels from dangerous ocean storms. GOES-17 will also provide a high-definition view over Alaska, resulting in better weather forecasts and improved monitoring of sea ice, wildfires, and volcanic ash. The advanced baseline imager on GOES-17 can distinguish between clouds, sea ice, and snow cover, a critical need during Alaska's dark, cloudy winter months. GOES-17's geostationary lightning mapper monitors lightning flashes, including the in-cloud lightning most prevalent in severe storms, helping forecasters determine when a storm is forming, intensifying, and becoming more dangerous. Thanks to GOES 17, emergency managers will be equipped with more accurate weather predictions and faster warnings, providing a real impact, saving lives, and protecting infrastructure. Watching over Earth from 22,300 miles above, GOES S will provide vital data to our weather-ready nation.
Hi, I'm JPSS. I'm a high-tech weather satellite that orbits our planet. I do something called a polar orbit. I circle the Earth from North Pole to South Pole, over and over, while the Earth spins. While I do that, I get lots of information about what's going on around the globe. I watch storms, clouds, and rain. I take the temperature of the ocean, measure air quality, ozone health, and take pictures of the land and sea. This information is used for all kinds of things. It helps us take care of our coasts and oceans and all the amazing things that live there. It helps us monitor harmful weather events like floods and droughts and measure the health of the environment. Most importantly, it helps us predict weather 3 to 7 days in the future. That means I can be a big help ahead of storms, where future warnings are important. I send information to the National Weather Service. They use the information to create forecasts. The forecasts are shared with people all over the country to help prepare for weather emergencies. So you look to the sky and wave. I'll be flying by.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
All right, let's jump into your marine forecast now. Let's start out with the sea ice, courtesy of Mr. Mike Lawson on the ice desk today. January 2nd, ice pack looks like this. Pack ice really stretching down all the way through St. Lawrence Island, down through Nunivak Island, and into the Bristol Bay coastline there. This ice has started to retreat just a little bit because of those strong systems from the south pushing a lot of warm air up in there. So that ice has retreated a little bit. Also, that warm air has impacted ice along Turnagain Arm and parts of the Cook Inlet. That has also retreated and reduced its concentration just a little bit. With strong northerly flow across this area, expect that to start to grow again, and then several storms into the weekend will impact this ice with decreasing ice concentration along the southern edge, courtesy of some more warm air and wind. All right, Southeast Alaska, for your Thursday marine forecast, you can expect northerly flow across the inner waters, 20 knots, and seas are going to be at 4 feet. And then over the outer waters, pretty similar pattern as well. Westerly winds becoming northerly winds as you get down towards Dixon Entrance, 15 to 25 knots, and seas on the order of 12 to 14 feet. On into Friday now, expect still more of that north and northwest flow for the inner waters. A little bit stronger up towards Lynn Canal at 30 knots, but generally 20 to 30 knots across the area, seas 4 to 6 feet. And then out over the open waters, northwest winds across the area, 20 to 25 knots. Seas are going to be running between 7 and 11 feet. On towards South Central now. I'll slide over here so you can see the entire Gulf, and really just looking for that offshore flow to persist, that cold air. It will help to produce some pockets of freezing spray, especially in the Prince William Sound, even towards Resurrection Bay, and that's going to be northwest at 20 knots, seas at about 4 feet protected waters, but up to 12 feet over the open waters. And then towards Cook Inlet, northerly winds becoming northwesterly, 10 to 25 knots, and seas between 2 and 9 feet. And then on into Friday now, you can see generally that's still northeast across the Cook Inlet region, but north winds across the rest of the coastline, 15 to 20 knots. Still some freezing spray concerns on Friday, and 5-foot seas for the most part of the region. On into the Alaska Peninsula for Thursday. Basically a northeast and northwest wind north of the peninsula at 20 to 25 knots, 4-foot seas, and then a little bit more confused flow as those weak systems start to work their way in from the south, generally 10 to 25 knots and seas between 3 to 9 feet. On into Friday, expect more of a westerly wind as that area of high pressure starts to shift off, and we see 10 to 20 knots out of the west-northwest, seas between 3 and 6 feet. For the Aleutian chain on Thursday, gonna be that westerly wind across the area as that area of trough of low pressure and cold air pushes through. Generally 20 to 25 knots out of the west-southwest and seas between 8 and 9 feet. Pretty consistent across the area. Then as that next system develops on Friday, you'll see a southerly wind start to increase and really start to increase out here west of Atka and Adak at about 40 knots and then more 20 to 15 knots towards Unalaska. Seas are going to ramp up from 6 to 7 feet all the way up towards 18 feet as you get out towards Kiska. On Thursday for the west coast, generally a southwest to southeast becoming easterly wind, an offshore wind there for you all with that area of low pressure north of the Pribilofs. Generally between 15 and 20 knots and expecting some 4 to 8 foot seas. Freezing spray in this area a concern as well, especially along the ice edge. And then on into Friday, again, an easterly wind up towards the Seward Peninsula, but more of a west-southwest wind, 15 to 20 knots down to the south, and generally 7 to 8 foot seas with some more freezing spray possible. On the Arctic coastline, going to see a bit of a confused wind east, then becoming southwest 20 knots up there with all ice-covered zones, and southeast 15 to 20 knots near the Seward Peninsula. On into Friday for the Arctic coast, expect a westerly wind from Utqiagvik over to Kaktovik, 10 to 15 knots, and then more of a south and east wind, 10 to 20 knots along the northwestern portion of the state. So let's recap tonight's weather. First of all, the winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories really up along the Alaska Range and northward will continue until either 6 p.m. tonight or 6 a.m. Thursday morning. Be sure to check with the Fairbanks office for your update on the forecast. And then snow showers is really going to continue to drift off to the north up near the Brooks Range as we go through the overnight hours. Snow still expected to wrap around this area of low pressure here over south central. That'll stretch down from the Susitna Valley through the Matanuska Valley, miss much of Anchorage, but it will extend out into the Copper River Basin. Unsettled weather out over the Bering Sea will continue to produce snow showers, and for you in southeast, things should be improving as northeast flow starts to bring some dry air, some clearing skies for you all on Thursday, and pretty quiet conditions. Snow showers wrapping up for the Copper River Basin, and snow finally starting to dissipate across the northern portion of the state thanks to that large area of low pressure and that strong push of moisture. But by Friday, we see our next system developing out towards the Bering Sea, bringing another chance for warm air and strong winds for mariners. Thanks for joining us this evening. Have a great night.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.